be going over today will be Bloom's taxonomy, the Pomodoro method, the study cycle, how to maximize study sessions, as well as maximizing office hours, class time, and discussion sections. So first, I have a little video on Bloom's taxonomy that we will watch.
Bloom's taxonomy is a toolbox that teachers or students can use to classify and organize learning objectives. Its most popular version is based on the cognitive domain and assumes that learning should be structured from easy to difficult in the following 6 steps. 1. Remember. 2. Understand. 3. Apply. 4. Analyze. 5. Evaluate. 6. Create. On the first level, we learn to remember. There is just rote memorization and recollection of facts without much understanding. For example, if we learn about lemons, we want to remember the name, shape, color, size, and that they are sour. Once we memorize these essentially meaningless facts, we move to the second level of learning. On level 2, we learn to understand. We begin to decode information and learn that a lemon is yellow when it's ripe to eat, and if we take a bite, that it's really super sour. We also understand that lemons love sunshine and that they contain lots of vitamin C, which is a great natural antioxidant that keeps us healthy. Now, as we really understand a lemon, we can work with it. On the third level, we apply what we know. We've understood that while lemons are sour, they are also a great provider of vitamin C. To apply this knowledge in a meaningful way, we could boil a lemon into hot water and add some honey. Then serve this hot lemon to our sick sister who's in need of treatment. On the fourth level, we learn to analyze. This involves examining and breaking down information into components, determining how the parts relate to one another, and finding evidence to support generalizations. We study the lemon flesh, examine the skin, and look at levels of vitamins. We conclude that we can eat everything inside, while the skin tastes bitter and contains traces of toxic pesticides. It ought not to be consumed. Now we are ready to evaluate. We analyze, critique, and compare. To evaluate our lemon as a good source of vitamins, we compare it to other sources, such as oranges and supplements. We look at the following properties: vitamin levels, affordability, taste, and packaging waste. If we evaluate our thoughts critically and without bias, we learn where the lemons score high and where others score higher. Now, after we have learned, understood, applied, analyzed, and evaluated, we are ready to create. As we now really understand lemons, also in comparison to similar things, we can formulate a plan to create our own natural lemonade. It's now easy to come up with a cute shop design, a good name, and a good slogan: natural, healthy, yummy. Bloom's taxonomy was first created in 1946 by American psychologist Benjamin Bloom. The revised version from 2001, as just presented, serves as the backbone of many teaching philosophies, in particular those that aim towards teaching specific skills. Each level usually comes with a clear learning objective that can be tested. Critics of the taxonomy often question the existence of a sequential, hierarchical link between each level. What are your thoughts? Please share them in the comments below.
Okay, so after watching that video, what I want all of you guys to do, if you can, is to maybe think about a concept, a topic, maybe a theory or something that you might have learned in one of your classes that you might be able to apply Bloom's taxonomy to, which would just be the first step of remembering, like coming up with a concept and thinking about what that concept is about. I know for me, I can give the example of, oh, sorry. I can personally give an example of self-determination theory and how that might lead to me creating a research topic and project off of self-determination theory and follow all of these steps. So if you guys wouldn't mind thinking about maybe something you learned in class and just commenting and chatting in the chat box to share like maybe a topic or a concept that you might follow these steps for. I'll type mine in. If anyone else would like to share, please do so. Learning any physics principle follows Bloom's taxonomy. Awesome, Jacob. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share? And like Jacob said, like any physics principle. So it can be specific to a specific principle that you share, or maybe just like general, like a topic from a class that you've had. I know you guys have learned something so far this semester. Yes, exactly. What are you learning in class right now that can serve as a topic for this? Awesome. Coding, creating problem, perspective drawing an arc. Perfect. Thank you everyone for at least thinking about this a little bit and coming up with some ideas. Ethics and computer science. Yes, like literally anything that you can think of can follow Bloom's taxonomy and help in creating something in the future further down the line. Virtual mechanics. Awesome. I love that I'm getting responses now.
Virtual machines.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, like I said, pretty much any participating everyone. Yes, thank you. So next we'll talk about the Pomodoro method a little bit now that we have Bloom's taxonomy kind of in our brains. So we'll watch a little video on this. Sorry for the commercial.
When I first told my friends that I was doing a talk on a study method that I use, I could see the collective look of disgust that swept across their faces as they processed what I just told them. So bear with me, as I firmly believe that the Pomodoro Method has the power to change your life. My typical cycle of studying used to start out determined. I would come home, sit down at my desk, and do a couple of worksheets. The only problem was that productiveness only lasted for an hour, as I would easily get distracted. I would usually spend a couple hours on my phone, and then I would snap back into determination, but find myself getting burned out once again as the minutes ticked away. I would work until I physically couldn't anymore. I'd pass out, utterly exhausted. With my rigorous course choice this year, I had made myself promise that I would be productive. I had to. I had to succeed. And yet, I failed to do that every single day. I struggled to stay afloat, fatigued, stressed, and strained. And I snapped as a result. And quite truthfully, I was disappointed with myself. Then, one day, I came across a video. It was a video telling me how to study better. And I was intrigued by one specific tip, the Pomodoro Method. So what is it exactly? Well, you start out by deciding on a task and estimating the amount of time that it will take you. Take, for instance, this AP World chapter outline. I estimate that it will take me 4 hours of work, give or take. But instead of thinking about the outline as 4 hours of work, I'm going to think about it in terms of 25-minute increments, or Pomodoros. So this outline would, in theory, take me 8 Pomodoros. The next step is to work for those 25 minutes with absolutely no distractions, or you have to restart the Pomodoro. But after that hyper-focused work, you get to reward yourself with a 5-minute break, which serves to recharge and refresh you in preparation for the next Pomodoro. 4 cycles of this pattern of 25, 5 minutes, and then you get to take a long break, 15 to 30 minutes. For myself, I typically still try to stay off my phone during these breaks and make some coffee, take a short walk, or when I want to feel super productive, I'll do chores. I know, shocker. This method was actually developed in the 90s by Francisco Cirillo, who named the system Pomodoro, which means tomato in Italian, after this 25-minute kitchen timer that he used to track his work. And it is important to know that although he developed the system for a 25 5-minute pattern, the Pomodoro is a fluid system. It's designed to help you and help you with your work. For myself, I stick to the traditional 25 5-minute pattern when I'm doing worksheets or studying for tests. But for longer, more time-consuming assignments like, let's say, projects or essays, I choose to work for much longer increments and take shorter breaks. So here I am now. I'm still not the perfect student, and I want to iterate that, but the Pomodoro has changed me. It's changed the way I think and act about my work. When needed, I could spend a full day simply working, as I am just recharged and kept stimulated through the whole day. With a timer constantly ticking, I find myself working quickly in order to achieve and accomplish those goals through each 25-minute increment. And quite truthfully, it just feels so much more rewarding and fulfilling. Being able to check things off after the other, watching your pile of work go down, knowing that you accomplished something that day instead of, not to call you out, but wasting 2 hours on Netflix. So now it's my turn to ask you, are you as efficient as you can be? Are you productive, or does your time seem to just slip away? Do you complete your work, or is it scraped together at the last minute? The Pomodoro is a fluid system designed to help you produce higher quality work in a shorter amount of time. But whatever method, I encourage you to think about your time differently, to set goals for yourself and strive to meet them, to set aside the constant distractions and focus on your tasks at hand. You never know how much time you really have until you start to use it. And it looks like my break is over. Thank you.
Okay. So after watching that video, I would really like to hear, you can type it in the chat box, any general thoughts. Did what she was talking about resonate with you at all, with maybe not being very productive or getting very distracted when trying to focus on tasks? Very inspirational. Thank you, Chris, for commenting on that. Yeah, I think a lot of people can understand called you out. Yeah, a lot of people can understand this idea, right, of just not being able to focus, not being engaged with the material. So I'd also like to know, has anyone tried the Pomodoro method or anything similar? Someone says they do like a 45-minute work and 15-minute break, right? So that's a little bit kind of like how she was talking, where she might change it up a little bit and not do, the 25 5-minute break, but make a little bit longer sessions. Heard about this before. Got too distracted during your breaks. Yeah, so sometimes if you get distracted during your breaks and getting back into the mindset of working, sometimes you might want to set an actual timer of like 5 minutes for your break time, or however long your break is going to be, just to get a trigger back to starting your work again. First time in grad school. Yeah, I think it can be very helpful for a lot of people. Now, I mean, I will say all study type behaviors and methods might work differently for some individuals, and that's why I'm kind of presenting on a couple ideas. But this is definitely a good method, and I think it can be adapted to your personal learning style and the way that you like to engage with material. So thank you everyone for sharing on that. And I hope that, you know, maybe you will try this at some point just to see if it does or doesn't work. And a lot of trying to figure out how to study is a lot of trial and error. So you might find that you might need to make adjustments to what she was talking about. Like she mentioned, for longer projects. I know for me with essays, I can't only work for 25 minutes. I have to do longer periods. So just like finding those changes and ways to make a certain method work specifically for you. But yeah, I really think that the video is inspirational, so I appreciate those comments on that as well. Okay, so now we'll look at the study cycle for a little bit, which starts with previewing material. This is before class. Skim the material and note down any big ideas. I know this can be a little bit challenging to like read an entire chapter before class, which is what a lot of people might recommend. And that is helpful for some people, but even just looking at a chapter and pulling out the major sections that'll be discussed or major topics that we'll be going over in class can be very helpful in preparing yourself to engage in the material while you're in class. So the next section would be attending class, going to class, taking notes during class, and asking questions. I would recommend staying engaged in the material as much as possible during class. So if that is making comments or making questions, writing down notes, any way you can stay engaged with the material so that you're not like spacing out while a lecture is going on, or maybe not paying attention on online classes because it might be recording. So you can always go back and watch the video again. That would probably waste a little bit of time. So just trying to stay engaged with the material as you're in class will be very helpful. The next part, review. So read notes, fill in gaps, and develop questions based off of what you learned. You can do this for about 10 to 15 minutes. The next section, study. Schedule several focused study sessions per class each week, and this could consist of like 30 to 50-minute study sessions. I'll be going over in the next slide specifics as far as the focused study sessions goes. And then check. So check to make sure if you could teach this material to someone, check to make sure you actually understand it. And if you can do these things, then it's probably indicative that you did have very good study methods and that they were effective. But if you can't teach it to someone else, or you're really struggling to fully understand and apply the material, then you might need to readjust the study methods that you're using just to become more effective and so that you're better understanding the material for like later down the road in essay form or for exams. So as far as focused study sessions goes, so first set a goal. This can be take up 1 to 2 minutes of your time to decide what you want to accomplish in your study session. Study with a focus for about 30 to 50 minutes. This includes interacting with material, organizing, summarizing, creating concept maps, processing, rereading information, filling in notes, and reflecting on the material that has been covered. reward yourself for about 10 to 15 minutes. So take a break, go for a walk, get a snack, and relax. And then review for about 5 minutes. Go over, summarize, and wrap up what you just studied. And we'll watch a short video on study tips that you might be able to use.
Our brain can potentially memorize 2.5 petabytes of information, which is roughly the equivalent of 3 million hours of YouTube videos. In order to use some of that staggering capacity a little more effectively when you learn, here are some tips that are based on widely accepted research by neuroscientists and learning experts. Spaced repetition. To maximize your learning, study short but often. Neuroscientists proved that synapses, the million billion connectors in your brain that make you remember and understand stuff, grow mainly at night when you were asleep. This means that it is more productive to study regularly with sleeping breaks in between. Try it. Practice something for 15 minutes every day and you'll be surprised by your progress within just weeks. Find your own style. While listening to the history teacher, Tom scribbles images and Jane finishes 1 kilo of nuts. Some enjoy watching videos over reading books, others study with friends, and some like sitting in silence among a million books. Everybody is different. Good night's sleep. Sleep and dreams are vital to processing and storing new information. A Harvard study showed that students who had a good night's sleep remembered their study materials 35% better than those who studied in the morning to take a test in the evening. Focus. If you tend to procrastinate, which means that you tend to switch from doing something hard like studying maths to something easy like browsing the web, protect yourself from distraction. One way of doing this is to shut down your mobile phone or go to a quiet place like a library. Pomodoro technique. Set a timer to 25 minutes when you focus entirely on your studies. When the timer rings, relax for 5 minutes. If you want to continue, just set the timer again. The small breaks in between are relaxing and motivating to keep going. Hard stuff first. Do the things that are difficult, because if you are like most people, you have the strongest willpower in the morning. Once you are done with the hard stuff, you will feel better for the rest of the day and probably more motivated to get other things done. Exercise, meditate, and converse. There are few activities proven to grow your brain. However, physical exercise, regular meditation, and good conversations apparently do exactly that. They lead to the creation of new neurons inside your brain and therefore grow its potential. Go places. You can create deeper memories of a subject by learning in a richer environment that offers more visual clues. In an experiment, 2 groups of students had to remember random words. One group changed the classroom while studying. The other didn't. The group that studied in 2 different rooms, one was small and windowless, the other big and bright, was 40% more likely to recall the words later. Take fun seriously. Whatever it is, find a fun way to practice. Modern learning science believes that positive emotions are very important for increasing your learning potential. So do yourself a favor and have a good time. Space your studies. In order to remember things for a longer time, repeat the material in spaced intervals. Facts or vocabularies, for example, are best learned if you review them the first time 1 to 2 days after the initial study, and then again after 1 week and after 1 month. 30% read, 70% recite. If you have 1 hour to learn to recite a poem or prepare for a speech, spend 20 minutes of the time on studying the text and 40 minutes on practicing to recite. This ratio usually leads to the best results. In the case of an emergency, put a glass of water next to you. Take a sip whenever you lose it. Instant self-test. After you study, finish up with a quick quiz. Immediate recall in the form of a test or a short summary on what you've just learned can increase retention by as much as 30%. Because it's much harder for your brain to reflect than to read, that extra effort creates deeper traces in your memory. Don't force it. Motivation is like hunger. You cannot force yourself to be motivated, just like you can't tell someone else to be hungry. So if you are not hungry right now, don't worry. Take a break and do something else.
Okay, so in the interest of time, we probably won't spend much time in this. I can always go back to it, but I want you guys to think about if you've tried any of these techniques mentioned, or if anything stood out to you that you might want to try. I just want to make sure I get through all of the material, so I'll be moving on to the next slide, but we can always come back to this, or you can look at it later. So maximizing office hours, class time, and discussion sections. One thing, definitely make sure you plan and schedule time in your planner or your schedule or wherever. I know some students will write down the office hours in their schedule just to make sure that they attend office hours and that they're aware of that time. But also to put in your class time that you are engaging in, that you need to make sure you show up for. Planning and scheduling time is very important in order to just get the first step in maximizing these tasks. Read the materials ahead of time and come prepared with questions to ask. This definitely more so applies specifically with office hours. If you go to office hours and you don't have an idea in mind of what you want to ask or get help on, then you're not going to get a lot of help. So just make sure you're prepared for what you're actually asking, what you need help with. Same thing with class time and discussion sections, and participating and staying involved to definitely help with discussion sections. And then last, communicate with your professors, teaching assistants, any of the ARC tutors, as well as fellow students. Maintaining this communication can help in honestly anything you're doing in school. I know it can be difficult to engage with fellow students with most of everything being online, but you can still email and text and communicate, just because they might be able to help you understand topics that you're going over in class, and just staying engaged overall. So with that being said, does anyone have any last minute questions that they would like to ask or go over? If no questions, I'll hand it back over to Marky. I know that there might be some last minute updates or something.
Of
I have a comment.
course. Oh, go ahead, Cameron.
I think these tips are very important for Generation Z.
Yes, thank you for sure. I think that any of these tips are
You see
helpful.
a chart right here?
Mm-hmm.
Focus on not the bottom one, but the second lowest one. But Generation Z, they're the second youngest. This is very important for us Gen Zers, because members of Gen Z, we face challenges when we need to overcome them. For example, mental health issues.
Can you summarize the whole meeting in 5 minutes?
Yeah, that's all I want to say, is that this is very good advice.
Yeah, Cameron, thank you so much for that feedback. I agree. I think it's really, really important to be able to have various strategies, that you can employ whenever you do face those challenges. Any other last minute questions before we go into last minute announcements? Okay, friends, so very quickly, I'm going to share my screen just to basically give you a few last minute updates that you're going to want to be aware of. So, give you one moment. And then I think someone's got their mic unmuted, if you could be sure to mute that. But very quickly, I just wanted to go over a couple of upcoming events. So this Friday night, you should have gotten a text today and an email saying that you've been auto-registered for a first-year experience virtual game night. It's coming up this Friday from 6 to 7:30. Obviously, this is totally optional, but I know that you are looking for opportunities to interact socially right now, given, of course, everything with the pandemic and everything being virtual. So this is another opportunity for you. So we're going to be doing a trivia murder death party. We're going to be having breakout rooms for conversation. And if you would like to wear a costume, we will even have a costume fashion show virtually. So that is this coming Friday from 6 to 7:30. If you're free and you have some time, please feel free to log in and socialize with your classmates. Also, friends, if you would like to do this week's journal prompt, here it is. So there are multiple times of intelligence. What are your main strengths and why? Based on your strengths, what is your ideal classroom environment? And then how can you use your strengths to be successful when you are not placed in the ideal classroom environment? And what resources might you need to seek for help? And friends, the last thing that I wanted to share with you is just that next week on Tuesday the 3rd, please join us for part 3 of our Metacognitive Approach to Academics unit, where we will continue to learn some helpful tips and tricks for being successful in the classroom. So friends, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next week.